push it onto YouTube at a later point. So I want to start out this webinar. You know, I'm a meteorologist. I'm not a complete expert in this, but thought I'd go through some of the basic information for the upcoming solar eclipse on Monday. But this is just some general info from the National Environmental Satellite Data and Information Service, but just basic information. Solar eclipses occur when the moon passes between the sun and the earth, causing the moon to cast a shadow on a portion of the earth's surface. Now, cool part about this eclipse is if you're in that zone of totality, you can see that corona, not normally visible due to the sun's overpoweringly bright light. However, during a total solar eclipse, the moon aligns perfectly with the sun and covers the entire solar disk. So this is going to be a possibility. I'm going to say a possibility because it really depends on cloud cover, whether you're going to get a complete view of it. But the path of totality for this eclipse is going to be going through extreme portions of Western Kentucky, southwestern Indiana, up through the center of Indiana and northwestern Indiana. So here's a look. I wanted to take a look back. Our last solar eclipse was back on August 21st, 2017. These two images on the left, the top one shows the path of totality going through Western Kentucky again. Some of those portions of Western Kentucky, you've gotten really lucky. It's not, or I should say it's a rarity to be in two solar eclipse, the totality region back to back. But some folks out there, that's the case. But this is some data taken from Dr. Eric Rapin. I hope I'm not pronouncing that wrong. But Kentucky Climate Center research scientists, they were looking at mesonet data during this last eclipse. So I took Zion here, Z-I-O-N, I should say, from Todd County. Temperature is shown in the red shade there. You got relative humidity in blue, and then solar radiation in black there. So you see solar radiation really take a dip there at 1830. UTC temperatures also drop considerably. Now this is in Celsius, but going from roughly 32 degrees C to 27.5 degrees C. You guys can do the math on your end. I should have looked at this previously, but that's quite the temperature drop in terms of Fahrenheit. And of course, we lose all that solar radiation. Relative humidity took quite the bump right there at that same time. I didn't include it on this slide, but there are also some graphics taken from that event from the Kentucky Mesonet stations of wind speeds really dropping at that same point too. So from a meteorological aspect, we will see changes in some of these parameters as we go into totality across Western Kentucky and Indiana, so on and so forth. So I'm sure the folks at the Kentucky Mesonet will be tracking this again in 2024. Now, more about this event. Again, Western Kentucky counties will be in that totality view. I think it's like 3 or 4 plus minutes, extreme Western Kentucky. So Paducah, you're right there on the edge. Places like Henderson, Union County over there, you're in a really good spot. I say a good spot, but traffic might get a little hectic come Monday. So FYI, I heard some bad news about the last 2017 event. Traffic was just horrible, but the rest of the state, 98% totality all the way down to 90% totality. So you might get that dimming effect, but you won't get the full experience like places like Paducah, Henderson County, so on and so forth will get. So, but that's all dependent on cloud cover. And the Weather Prediction Center, they've been putting out these social media graphics for the past several days. I tried to get the one from today, but it looked like they're not going to put it out till 2 p.m. So this is from yesterday. It shows based on forecast models, a combination of forecast models, what cloud cover is expected to be like come 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, when this event is going to occur. And you can notice down there in Western Kentucky, Southern Indiana, or I should say Southwestern Indiana, we're in a pretty good spot as it sits now. But I was looking at the latest data today. It still feels like, I mean, there's plenty of uncertainty still in the forecast. We're sitting here at Thursday. We still got a long ways to go before we get to Monday. But this is the latest from the National Weather Service in Paducah. If you go to their homepage, it's weather.gov/PAH. You can look at this briefing up in the right-hand corner of their screen. And they do show temperatures, they show precipitation, but this is the slide I wanted to put on here of the sky cover forecast. Anything in blue is clear skies, anything in black, gray, overcast skies. So, of course, over here in Henderson, Evansville, Carbondale, you name it, pretty cloudy day today. Skies are going to clear up as we go into the early portion of the weekend. Another system brings some cloud cover back to the region, but there's hope that the sky cover really clears out before this solar eclipse happens on Monday. So you see some lower percentages in there. That would be partly cloudy skies at that time. So still a little bit of a gamble whether cloud cover is going to block your view or not. So this will be an exciting event. I'm sure, I'm not sure if Jerry or Chip is up next month, but I'm sure the Mesnet will have some interesting data to share. So moving into the climate portion of this webinar, looking back at precipitation over the past 7 days, 30 days, you name it. The past 7 days, we've averaged about 1 2/10 of an inch across the state, and we need it. Problem is, you look over here at Western Kentucky. This has been a drier area over the past month, which I'll show here in a second, but they missed out on a lot of this precipitation the past week. So places over here in the northern bluegrass, northeastern Kentucky, 4 or 5 inches of rainfall. There were flash or flood watches in effect for this region. I don't remember seeing a lot of flash flood warnings during that severe weather event on Tuesday, but nonetheless, past week, bluegrass, northeastern Kentucky has gotten quite a bit of rainfall. Going back the past 30 days, again, you're starting to see this difference between the eastern half of the state and the western half of the state. State as a whole averaged about 3.5 inches, which is an inch below normal. So again, this is from April 4th back the past 30 days. Places in northeastern Kentucky, a brunt of this actually fell this past week, but you know, you still see some pink areas here, 6 to 8 inches of precipitation over the past 30 days. So bluegrass, northeastern Kentucky looking all right. Western Kentucky, you go back this way. Portions of the Pennyroyal region down here, this yellow color, 1.5 to 2 inches, well below normal for the month of March. So this is a little bit of a concern, you know, as we're heading into the 2024 growing season. Vegetation got a head start this year with warmer temperatures in place, and this will be something we're watching moving forward. Last 60-day observed precipitation. Again, you see those higher values out across the eastern half of the state, that pink area of 10 to 15 inches going out to western Kentucky. That tan area, 3 to 4 inches, orange area, 4 to 5 inches. So much less precipitation across the western half of the state from the eastern. So we're on opposite ends of the spectrum. 6.88 inch average, which is about 2 inches below normal over the past 2 months. Going back 90 days, we see that deviation change for the positive. State has averaged about 12.5 inches, which is 1/3 of an inch above normal. Now, looking at deviations over the past 30 days, the image in the top left-hand corner, again, our concern has been across Western Kentucky, West Central Kentucky, a lot of yellow in there, 1 to 2 inches below normal. If you get those tan colors there, 2 to 3 inches below normal. We go back 60 days in the top right-hand corner. You still see those deficits across Western Kentucky. So orange color, 3 to 4 inches, red color, 4 inches plus below normal. But eastern half of Kentucky, looking good, looking good. 90-day, we see those negative departures kind of disappear. This will really take into account the month of January that was awfully wet for the Bluegrass State. But looking at some statistics, just looking at March as a whole, I looked at the past 30 days a few maps ago that included the start of April and this rainfall event we got this past Tuesday. But in March alone, preliminary data says the state averaged 2.76 inches, which is about 1.8 inches below normal. Awfully dry month. Western Kentucky itself, again, I've been pointing to this area over here. It's been much drier than the rest of the state. Western Kentucky only averaged 2.09 inches, which is over 2.5 inches below normal. Now, if you take into account this 2.76 inch number, and we compare that to Kentucky's March records, that would be the 20th driest March on record. Again, this is preliminary data. The official data will probably come out some point in the next week, and we'll get a better picture there. But I think we're pretty safe to say we're going to end up someplace in the top 25 driest Marches on record. And then lastly, I wanted, it seemed like that fall drought has been a long time ago now, but this is the second straight month of below normal rainfall. But if we go all the way back to September, we've 6 out of the past 7 months, the state averages ran below normal in terms of rainfall. So this is quite the difference from what we saw at the start of the decade. It seemed like months with below normal precipitation were hard to come by, but this past year, we're seeing more in the way of below normal precipitation. So we'll see where this goes going into the spring here in a second. We look at the outlooks. Looking at temperatures, March rankings, again, we're sitting probably top 15 for warmest March ever recorded. The state average is 46.5 degrees, 4.3 degrees above normal. This continued, warm month after one of our warmest winters we've ever recorded in Kentucky history. So vegetation has really started to pop. It continues to pop. Unfortunately, I've had to mow my grass 4 times already this year, which I'm not happy about, but, comes with the territory. We did have one bout of extreme cold on the 18th and 19th this month. We were a little concerned with agriculture. I'll revisit this here in a bit, but some areas did dip into the upper teens. So very cold night for March standards. Now, this dry March has led to some problems in terms of, the U.S. Drought Monitor. We're looking at soil moisture here. This is a soil moisture anomaly across the United States, and our anomalies are somewhat maximized compared to the rest of the U.S., especially across the western half of Kentucky. Now, looking at Kentucky topsoil moisture, the first crop report of the year came out this past Monday. Looking currently, about 20 to 30% of the state's topsoil moisture, according to extension agents and whatnot across the state, is running short to very short. Still have a large percentage in that adequate category, but if you compare that to where we were at this time last year we didn't have hardly any soil or topsoil moisture considered short or very short. So some places starting off the growing season on the drier side. This precipitation this past week will help out, but definitely need more across the western half of the state. Stream flows running much below normal, pretty low across portions of western Kentucky, some across eastern Kentucky. Looking at the map of 7-day average stream flows, looking at 28-day average stream flows, you see more of those orange colors popping up across the state, so below normal for this time of year. Put it all together, look at all the impacts, and you get the latest update to the U.S. Drought Monitor. You can look down there in the southern Ohio Valley. There's a significant portion of Western Kentucky, southwestern Indiana, southern Illinois, and portions of eastern Missouri that are now seeing moderate drought conditions. So currently it's at 27.97% of this entire Midwest, slight uptick from last week, but the slight uptick was mainly in our region. So if I zoom in closer to the state of Kentucky, again, moderate drought was reintroduced to some counties along the Ohio River out there in the Green River region of Kentucky and the Purchase region of Kentucky. So folks out there, Henderson, Paducah, you are now in a moderate drought. First time since earlier this year, whenever we saw it diminish. But rest of Western Kentucky, West Central Kentucky, considered abnormally dry at this time. Moving on to severe weather. You know, all the focus was this past Tuesday. We had 2 rounds of severe weather move through the area. I thought I'd kind of focus on this event. We had an early morning event pass through Western Kentucky, through the Southern Bluegrass and whatnot. We had quite a bit of damage here on UK campus in the way of trees coming down, some smashing on cars. We had some damage to buildings. There were several tornadoes involved with this first round of storms, but we had a second round later in the day. You probably remember all your broadcast meteorologists explaining we were in a moderate risk for the day from the Storm Prediction Center, which is a level 4 out of 5. In a lot of ways, guys, being honest, I think we got lucky. So, and we didn't. We saw some EF2 damage. This track is currently still being looked at up there in Clark, Indiana, Jefferson, going across the river there into Oldham County, portions of Henry County. But EF2 damage, that would be considered a strong tornado. They're also looking at some other damage surveys across the area, but there have already been confirmed Clark County, Jessamine County, Anderson County, Nelson County, EF1 tornadoes, 95, 100 plus miles per hour. So I want to say real quick, you know, it doesn't have to be a EF2, EF3 tornado to cause a lot of damage. It can be a EF0, EF1 tornado. So if you're ever under a tornado warning, you know, take them seriously, take shelter. I know through our lifetimes, we're probably not going to see, or most of us will probably not see a tornado, but that doesn't mean the next time a tornado warning is issued, it won't, you know, unfortunately hit your area. So always heed these tornado warnings, take shelter. Just showing some of the damage pictures from John Gordon. He's the meteorologist in charge over at the National Weather Service in Louisville. I thought this was very unique. He said, strangest thing I've ever seen in 30 years of surveying tornadoes. Just FYI, after a tornado passes through, the National Weather Service goes out and does a damage survey to basically determine how strong the tornado was that passed over that area. And they look at several damage indicators. I think it's 28 damage indicators. And that could be a single residence, a apartment building, a hospital, you name it. But based on the degree of damage, they can estimate the peak winds associated with that tornado. But he saw this. He saw this damage. I don't know where it was at. I guess it was Indiana. He put Indiana WX, but 2x4 or whatnot was shot directly through the center of that roof. So something you don't typically see every day, and he hasn't seen it in 30 years of surveying. So this was in Nicholasville, Kentucky. He was on the damage survey down there. 110 mile per hour winds associated with this tornado. So you can see the power of these things. We need to really take them seriously. Something else I wanted to mention, April 3rd and 4th, this is the 50th anniversary of the 1974 super tornado outbreak. There was 148 tornadoes over 13 states over this 2-day period. This is arguably probably top three worst tornado outbreaks ever recorded in U.S. history. And this accounted for the only F5, EF5 tornado in Kentucky history. EF5, F5, it recently went from, or I shouldn't say recently, about a decade or more than a decade ago, went from the Fujita scale to the enhanced Fujita scale, F5 to EF5. But again, only one that occurred in Kentucky history happened in Brandenburg. This was from NOAA, showing this picture up in the upper right-hand corner. Grabbed this newspaper article from the National Weather Service in Wilmington, Ohio at the time. Kentucky tornadoes kill 73, thousands are homeless. Major event, not just for the state of Kentucky, but also Ohio, Indiana, Tennessee, Alabama, you name it. One of the more interesting statistics that I came across with this event was everybody remembers the EF4 tornado that went through Western Kentucky back in December 10th of 2021. There was 30 F4, F5 tornadoes associated with this event back in 1974. So, of course, they weren't on the ground as long as the 2021 event, but still, 30 of those monsters we saw, or stronger, that we saw in Western Kentucky occurred over this 2-day period back in 1974. So, big time event, 50th anniversary. It's hard to fathom it was that long ago now, but I know for a lot of folks, it still lives on in their hearts and whatnot. So 1974 outbreak. I want to take a quick second to talk about climatology in terms of tornadoes. April is typically one of the peak months for tornadic activity here in the Bluegrass State. We average about 5 tornadoes during the month of April. You can see the hot spot is down there in the southern Great Plains region, southeastern states of Mississippi, Alabama, and whatnot. But one outbreak can really change this. So, but this is just goes to show we are getting into severe weather season here in the state of Kentucky. We need to have multiple sources for receiving warning. We need to identify those safe shelters and just be on alert. Listen to your local meteorologist whenever they start eyeing a particular severe weather situation. And again, heed those warnings. Again, climatologically speaking, we saw that EF4 back in 2021, but just an FYI, EF4, EF5 tornadoes account for less than 1% of all tornadoes. So most tornadoes are not going to, tear a house down to the foundation. Most tornadoes are weak, and those are EF0 to EF1 in strength and account for 88% of all tornadoes. And then you get in that EF2 to EF3 range, counts for 11%. So this adds up with what we saw on Tuesday. Most all of them, except for one tornado, as it sits now, were considered weak. But I will say, you've seen the damage. Destruction still very much in play with weak tornadoes. As we go in these severe weather months, I've been kind of preaching this through my ag weather updates and stuff, some presentations I've been doing, just some points you need to hit over the next few months. Identify that shelter area. You want to get in the lowest level of your house, your work building, whatever it may be, in the most interior room. So maybe I need to go show my students in here where that shelter is after this presentation. I always try to relate this to farming operations. So ask yourself the what ifs, not only about, identifying those shelter areas, but what if you lose power? How will that impact your operation? What if roads are blocked? What if you have down fence, loose animals? How are you going to handle that situation? And then not necessarily in severe weather. Well, I guess it can be in the case of Western Kentucky, but plan these scenarios that extend out a week. So take into account all that information. This is just another look as to where to shelter in the case of tornado. This is from the National Weather Service. Shows a house with a basement. If you're in that basement, you're in a safe spot. You're below ground. You don't have any walls that are shared with the outdoor environment. If you have a one-story home, that's fine too. You just go to that most interior room, whether it's underneath a stairwell, whether it's an interior bathroom, whether it's a interior closet. Just trying to get away from those walls where you may have debris shooting through windows or maybe a wall being torn down. Now, I've been sending this out to the last webinar last month. I mentioned that we have a new app in the Ag Weather Center called Weather Alert. A lot of alerts were going off on Tuesday, and this is why we released this app in phase one. People getting tornado warnings, people getting severe thunderstorm warnings. We want you to be safe during these situations. But just a quick update, and I can come back to this slide later if you aren't grabbing the QR code now. But a new update, Android was approved in the Google Play Store 2 or 3 weeks ago. So we are now live on both platforms. Of course, I've been telling folks, send me your feedback. This is through extension. We're trying to help out Kentuckians throughout the area. And we want to make this the best that we can. And I will say I've got a lot of good feedback lately with there being no ads, and we're going to keep it that way. So again, Android is available now. Moving on to ag impacts. Again, the first crop report came out this Monday, and there are some beans, corn starting to go in the ground. I'm sure the warm temperatures this past week helped out, but of course it's cooled down again. So postpone those activities in the meantime, of course, with that excess precipitation some areas have gotten. Livestock, pasture, wheat condition, all pretty much in that fair, good, excellent category. Very little in that very poor to poor category. Saying that, we did have a scare. We did have a warm winter. We got into March. It continued with that warm trend, but we got to that 18th, 19th area and temperatures plummeted a couple nights. Coldest night was March 19th. This is a look at low temperatures from the Kentucky Mesnet. Had several locations drop into the low to mid 20s. And this got us thinking with winter wheat, with fruit trees, somewhat with alfalfa, is this going to be impactful on those crops? But I was really looking, there in West Central Kentucky, you see at 19, was that Grayson County, 17 there right next to it. So pretty extreme low temperatures for this time of year. Now, why were we concerned? Again, I showed you guys this last month. This is growing degree day accumulations, base 32 for growth and development. I explained, you see these lines increase. This is whenever we're accumulating growing degree days, and we have average temperatures higher than that base temperature of 32 degrees for development. And you see there in 2024, the only years that rival 2024 in terms of growth and development at this point at the end of March was 2017 and 2023. And they aren't very far ahead of us at this point. So it just makes sense. You saw this growth and development earlier in the year, and it just adding up with growing degree days. Now, going back to the impacts on various crops, this is the information we were looking at in the middle of March. Winter wheat can be damaged 28 degrees in the boot stage. I forget, Carrie told me we were at Feeks. Oh man, don't quote me on this. I thought it was 6 or 7 for some Kentucky wheat whenever we hit this cold spell. But you notice that we'll say 24 degrees approximate temperature for injury. She is doing some research on the impact of relative humidity on injury too. But this table is kind of a guide, but we've seen it doesn't necessarily add up for some of these freeze events that we've been seeing. So we did get well lower than 24 degrees for many locations in Kentucky during this event for 2+ hours. But from what I understand, it doesn't seem like we're seeing a lot of damage across the state. So this is some research going on in UK. Winter wheat specialists are looking farther into this to gain some knowledge on this aspect. Fruit trees, I heard some good news from Western Kentucky in this aspect too. There were peaches in bloom, 90% bloom kill, bud kill at 24 degrees. So there's a lot of places that met that criteria, 10% bud kill at 27 degrees. But from what I'm hearing out in Western Kentucky, there's still plenty enough blooms left to make a full crop. So this was unlike last year where there was 100% loss for many peaches throughout the state. Now, looking down here at strawberries, we're going to start issuing frost advisories, freeze warnings, probably Friday night, Saturday morning for the bluegrass state. This is going to be the first headlines of the year. Those are totally based on agriculture susceptibility. We are now into the first week of April, and just looking in my personal backyard, my matted row strawberries are starting to bloom now. So if I'm blooming in Georgetown, Kentucky, I'm sure there's a whole lot of other places in bloom. And if you have open flowers and it drops to about 30 freezing or below, you're going to be in trouble, because that first strawberry to develop is basically your moneymaker for all these commercial operations. And for homeowners, that's the best strawberries you're going to get. So I went ahead, I covered my strawberries for this upcoming freeze event. It's going to drop well below 30 for some locations. And what I tell folks is, if you see a temperature forecast for 33 or 34 degrees for your location, that's at 5-6 feet above the surface. It's going to be much cooler down there at the level where the strawberries are present. So you want to put some sort of protection. I was talking to the fruit specialist yesterday. He mentions getting some sort of fabric to place over the strawberries. That's going to be a better source for trapping that long wave radiation, that heat in that blanket. Plastic doesn't necessarily do it to that extent as what a fabric would be. But this is an example of what we did out at South Farm in Lexington, Kentucky, several years ago when we had a freeze event. You want to make sure that plastic, that cloth, whatever you're using, is in contact with the ground. In this case, we had some bags of rocks we put around the outskirt of this tarp, and you're just trying to trap all the heat. You're kind of trying to make a greenhouse effect within that fabric. Now, a lot of people might be itching at the bit to get started, planting those gardens and whatnot. But, I always tell folks Derby Day, Mother's Day, that's when I typically tell people is safe. These are the earliest safe planting dates for many crops across Kentucky, whether you're in Western, Central, or Eastern Kentucky. You can see tomatoes down there for Western Kentucky is April 20th, May 5th for Central Kentucky, and May 15th for Eastern Kentucky. So we are a long ways off from safe planting dates for many of these crops. Some of your cold crops like lettuce, you're okay to do. Onions, you're okay to do. But those warm season vegetables, we need to hold off for a little bit longer, a few more weeks at least. And that's because the average date of our last spring freeze in Kentucky, you can see these over here on the right, usually second, third week of April, sometimes a little later for Eastern Kentucky. I did have a question that came up last week on social media. They pointed out quicksand at April 19th, and let me find it on here. Jackson at April 6th. So they're not very far apart, but these also take into account elevation. Jackson is way up on a ridge location, so that accounts for your differences in the average date of last spring freeze here. Moving on to the forecast and outlooks, a 7-day precipitation forecast, totals over the next 7 days. Yeah, maybe a ½ inch or so across Central Kentucky, approaching an inch across Western Kentucky. We go out into the 6 to 10 day outlooks. This is April 9th through the 13th. Good news, come Monday, we're going to start warming up again. And that looks to continue into that 9th to 13th time frame with a solid chance of above normal temperatures hanging around, solid confidence, I should say. 6 to 10 day precipitation, high confidence, and above normal precipitation, especially for that area that's pretty much in that solar eclipse totality region. Moved on to 8 to 14 days, April 11th through the 17th, above normal temperatures sticking around, maybe some below normal precipitation working into the area there in that tan color. The monthly for April, favoring above normal temperatures and above normal precipitation. So this kind of hints to me maybe the latter half of the month is going to trend toward the wet side too. So something to watch. Then the seasonal outlook out April, May, and June, trending warmer than normal with slightly higher confidence and above normal precipitation throughout Kentucky. I always tell folks, take this with a grain of salt. If we get through this 3-month period and we're above normal in precipitation by 0.2 of an inch, this will verify. But we will have our ups and downs over that 3-month period. We'll have some dry spells, we'll have some wet spells. And even though they keep saying above normal temperatures, we're surely to have some cool spells too. Looking much farther out in the year, you know, this past winter we were in a El Nino. That's going to start to trend away as we go through the spring months. And you see those blue bars starting to increase in height. So La Nina is expected to come back to the region as we go into next winter. And La Nina during the winter months in Kentucky trends toward above normal precipitation, which I don't think we would mind having, considering we've seen this Mississippi River keep falling on a yearly basis, and Western Kentucky hasn't necessarily started off the growing season in good shape. So monthly stream flow outlooks, I'll go through these real quick. For April, most everyone is in that normal to below normal category. I don't see any of those dark red shades popping up, so that's good news. Moving on to the seasonal drought outlook. You combine this with the long range outlooks we just looked at, and drought looks to be a non-issue. So I'm hoping these wetter outlooks ahead and some of that precipitation over the next 7 days will take care of this this issue of dryness we've had across Western Kentucky. Looking at significant wildland fire potential, we're fine in the state of Kentucky. The problem is up there and northern Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and looking totally fine down the southeast. Now, just in quick summary, again, pretty dry March, 20th driest March on record. 6 out of the past 7 months have ran below normal for the bluegrass state. 15th warmest March on record has vegetation moving into advanced developmental stages for this time of year. Moderate drought reintroduced to Western Kentucky. Based on the forecast and long range outlooks, hopefully we can take care of that pretty quick but we'll see how it goes. And then Kentucky agriculture looking all right at the moment. We'll look ahead through the month of April. You know, planting's going to be underway. Corn and beans more so will be going to the ground here over the next several weeks and really get this party started. So lastly, again, our next webinar is scheduled for May 2nd. You can see all the contact information there for myself, Jerry, Bill, and Chip with the Division of Water. And then, you know, this drought impact report. If you're out in Western Kentucky or anywhere across the state at that, please let us know what you're seeing. Fill out this survey. And this information helps us greatly in shaping the U.S. drought monitor. Now, Jerry, I don't want to get in trouble with this, but I had to put this on here. Sorry, guys. I work at UK. I know you guys are down there at WKU. I got a lot of students shaking my head right now. Some guys trying to say boo, but you know what? I graduated from Purdue. This is a very exciting time to be a Boilermaker. So boiler up, folks. I hope you guys all stand with us as we go out to Phoenix, Arizona. And we should all be friends right now because we took care of those Tennessee Volunteers this past Sunday. So anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. Open it up to questions if you all have any. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Any questions aside from the basketball comment at the end?
Hey, Matt, this is Ben Rudy. Could you send the information out on now that you have the app on both Android and iPhone in the list served to the agents? I'm gonna try to put it in a newsletter or a Facebook post or something like that. So
Yep,
I
yep, sounds
appreciate it.
great. Are you signed up for my ag weather update?
Should be.
Okay,
I'll have to double check everything. I'm off this week, but I'll try to double check on that. I should
gotcha.
be on that though.
Gotcha, no worries. I think we're gonna put out an article through UK AgCom too, but I'll get all that info to you either way. So yeah.
All right. And we do need some rain down here. Where I'm concerned is with not having a river this year. Um, I'm worried about what the actual soil recharge has really been over the winter. So
Yeah, yeah. I I'm concerned about it too. I just, we went 2 years with low river levels at times on the Mississippi, and that just adds up over time. So
yeah,
it might look good right now, but let's just hope these above normal rainfall outlooks pan out because we definitely don't want that to happen for a third straight year. So
yeah. All right. Good talk today.
thank you. Thanks, Ben.
Matt, since we've been in a La Nina over the winter, I mean in an El Nino, uh, I mean we were forecast to have a drier than normal winter, and that's what we've seen. And I didn't realize it had been 6 out of the last 7 months. It's really a interesting statistic. But as we transition out of that El Nino to a La Nina later in the year, maybe those long-term precip outlooks are kind of picking up on some of that. But
Possibly. I it's just such a long ways out, Jerry.
yep,
So
yep.
I don't put a lot of weight into it yet, but especially those long range outlooks. But I'm a glass half full kind of guy, so I'm hoping for the best here in the state of Kentucky. So
But I do wonder if the dryness we've seen is somewhat related to the larger picture and the El Nino that we've had
I
and
think there was an article that just came out from Nidus that mentioned that a little bit. I haven't looked at that
mhm.
article very much, but I'll try to find it and send it your way. Maybe we can talk about that in next month's webinar.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Oh, thank you, Chelsea. That's awesome. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. We can't be saying boo. Come on, Chip. You're a boiler at heart. You know it.
Purdue's destroyed my brackets every year until the year I don't pick them, and then they destroyed them again.
Oh man. I will say I'm expecting a good game on Saturday. So the big man is back in college basketball. So
Mhm. Yep. Any other comments? Any other questions? Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Matt. Thanks for a great review.
all right, appreciate it. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to send one of us an email. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. So
All right, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Matt.
thanks. Bye.